Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. This video is a view of basically a new prototype for the way I'm doing the ocean modular boards. I recently, well, this is not recent actually, a ways back is how I should frame that. I had a customer who had received these two boards, and if you've been following any of my work in the past, particularly on water effects, I was using basically the Liquitex heavy gloss gel to create the ripples on the surface for water bodies, including the ocean boards. And there are a couple of problems with that. One is that it's difficult to build up significant height with them because they are acrylics, and so they tend to cloud in humid conditions if they're too thick, and it can be many, many layers to build up those thicknesses. And they're not really very durable over time if you place something on it. And this customer was interested in putting ships on it for gaming purposes and for display, and he was noticing some impressions in the surface. So I basically started rethinking how I would do these boards with an Envirotex surface, which is a two-part resin if you are new to my water effects and some of the materials that I use. But it's extremely durable. It's the kind of material they use for bar tops. And I wanted to use that, but get significant ripples in the surface, preserve that detail, as well as be able to create larger waves, because the gloss gels, you can't really build them up in height because once they get very thick, sometimes they can reabsorb moisture from the air and get cloudy, and I've discussed all of this in the past. So what I did is I actually was sort of rummaging around the web for ideas on how to do waves, and I came across this absolutely fantastic diorama artist, and his name is escaping me. It's JB something. I'm going to put a link to that in the description down below so you can take a look at his site. Beautiful work. You know, and in the past we've talked about being on the bell curve, right? And, you know, if you're in the middle, you're kind of at the top, and if you're awesome, you're sort of at the end, and if you're just starting out, you're over here. This guy is awesome. He's really at the end, and, you know, when people say, oh, I'll never be able to do awesome work, I look at his work and I say, oh my God, will I ever be able to do that? I mean, it's really, really nice stuff. So one of the things that he does, now because it's a diorama, it's a little easier for him, is he actually molds the waves and then casts resin into the mold to create the wave shapes that he wants. That produces obviously very durable waves and extreme detail because he can sculpt them in clay and make a mold and all of that. Now that's not really feasible for me because with the modular boards, they're going to always have a various shape for their contour for the, you know, the edge of the shore. And so I wanted to sort of adapt that idea, but give myself the flexibility to use the same mold for any of the ocean boards that I create. So what I ended up doing, and I did this actually in a couple different iterations, is I made a 20-inch by 20-inch mold. I hand sculpted all of the waves using a very firm clay, and then I made a mold of that, and now I'm casting Envirotex into that mold to create the major sections of the wave surfaces for the board. That gives it an incredibly durable surface, and it allows me to do all of that texture in a slightly faster I'm going to say faster in quotes, faster method, because actually what I've done here is actually way more time consuming than what I've been doing before. And I'll go through some of that. But it really was my attempt to hybridize that idea of casting the waves but maintaining the flexibility to be able to shape them to whatever board configuration I want. And the 20 by 20 would allow me to do up to a full ocean board, right, with no shore, and then cut it as needed to meet the contour of the shore. So this actually has been quite a long journey for me. I actually started this well before the Cliff Project, and so I had actually spent probably 2 months of experiments and testing before the Cliff Project really hit its main stream where I had to abandon it. But I've been able to come back to it now, and with all of the different experiments and prototyping that I've done, the customer had sent me back these boards. He wanted me to refinish them. I told him actually that I have more plans for changes for the ocean boards. So basically what I've done is use these as a prototype to try to do a near final version of them. And then these boards are actually going to go up on the clearance page, and they'll go up for a very reasonable price so that the customer can recoup some of that cost and apply it to the new order. So it's a big intro, but it's been a long journey to get to this point. And there's a lot of things that I like that are on these boards, and definitely a bunch of things that I would like to, and to me, I need to improve. So we're going to take a look at them in detail. I'm going to tell you first about the good things, then, of course, all of the things I think need improving, and then we'll wrap it up. So what I wanted to do first was give you an overhead view, sort of more of a gamer's view of them, and then we'll talk about some of the problems when we do more of a close-up. But first, what I wanted to show you was, of course, the ripples that are, mid-ocean, what I'm calling mid-ocean. And we'll, of course, we'll see them at a different angle, so the glare will be a little different. But what I tried to do was give them a little bit of texture, and also, control the sort of the angle of the waves without making them look too regular. I was really pleased with how that came out. And then again, the nice thing is that we're getting that super durable surface. So really pleased about that. The angles of the waves as they approach the shore, and I will probably talk about this when I do the final version of these, and I'll show you some pictures that I used as a reference. But when the waves approach the shore, they actually start to bend in towards the shore, and that is something I was trying to do with these and started to get it a little bit better. So I feel pretty good about that. I think I can get a little bit better angle on it, and it was a little bit surprising when I was looking at photos at just how much the waves will curve to come in against the edge of the shore. So that was something I practiced, and I think it worked fairly well, and I think it can just be done just a little bit better, and I'll show you, of course, here when it's coming in straighter, that sort of comparison. The other thing that I liked was the wave height and the durability. These waves are made with liquid nails, clear seal, and when I have coated them with the Envirotex, they get an Envirotex layer over them. They're actually quite durable. They're a little flexible, but they actually resist deformation pretty well, and if they get an impression, it sort of settles out pretty quickly. So I was pretty happy about that as well. The other thing that I really liked, and this is something I'll be expanding, was that color transition as it approaches to shore. And when we do a side view, I'll show you how I'm going to modify that. But I'd like to take that color transition out further so that it's a little bit more gradual, and then we'll get a little bit more of a lightening as we come into the shore, which is going to look a lot more realistic and also brighten up the shoreline and really make it look a lot more interesting. And of course, one of the things that I was working on was sort of a crashing foam against the shore. I haven't really done that before. And while there's a few improvements I'd like to make on that, I think that came out fairly well also. Again, there's a little bit of modification that I'd like to do there. This is sort of a first iteration, but I have some ideas on that. Now, one thing I want to point out before we go in for the close-up is I want to show you the difference between these two boards. When we look at this one, when I'm coating this, actually after I lay down the cast waves, then I'm overcoating the entire board with Envirotex to sort of help blend these in and also give some durability to the waves. This is a bit more tricky than I expected in the sense that I don't want to have too much Envirotex in between the waves because it begins to look a little puddled. That's the way I view this here. A little bit puddled. It hides some of the detail, and if you look, each of these waves actually has a very fine sort of sculpt into the surface of it, and it really is more preserved in this board. And while I tried to do them the same, I ended up, and you can really see that in the side-by-side there, I really ended up not pouring them evenly, and this one ended up with a little bit more. And this, of course, I think looks just so much better. So that is something I can control pretty well. So really, I was pleased with this one, and I'm using this one as a sort of warning about how I need to be a little bit more careful down the road. Now, one thing that I didn't like about this, and let's see here if I can come in just a little bit closer on it, and I think you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So let's start talking a little bit about some of the improvements that need to happen. One of the things I noticed, and really I noticed this mostly after it had fully cured, I wasn't really seeing this difference when I was first working on them, is you can see here, this is the liquid nails area, and it actually ended up with a slightly different color than the rest of the waterway. And you know, it's not a very, very strong look, and depending on how you look at the boards, it's more noticeable depending on the angle and the lighting. But this ended up with a slightly bluish tint compared to this. Now, one of the things that I think contributed to that is I actually tinted the cast of the Envirotex, and I think that deepened the blue here, and that sort of made this look a little bit lighter. The next improvement then will be to cast the Envirotex clear, which actually be a little bit easier to control, as I ended up having a slightly different tint between this board and the second board. And I think that's going to help smooth this slightly. I'd also like to tint this just a hair with a little bit of green, actually, as this has quite a bit of green and blue in it, and I think that's going to tie it into the color of this a little bit better. And of course, by bringing out the shallow area more and keeping the transition between the wave heights here a little bit closer in height, I think that's going to also help blend in this color. So that's one thing I definitely want to improve. One of the other things that needs to be improved is the pointer catastrophe, is to improve the transition of the sort of white highlight of the waves. Let's see here if we can get a better look at it. So another thing I'd like to improve is the sort of white, if you will, in the waves. And, you know, in this area here, I really like the sort of soft under the green tint, froth in the wave, although I think it needs to come up a little bit higher on the crest. And then here you'll see it's got a little bit too much streaking. So I want to feather that in future ones, and I think I have to cut the liquid nails with mineral spirits. I didn't mention that before, but in order to work with it, you really need to add mineral spirits because it skins over very fast, and this is the only way you can actually soften it or thin it in order to sort of paint with it, if you will. I don't really recommend Liquid Nails Clear Sil for the beginners because it is a bit of a trick in order to be able to use it. So anyway, you can kind of get a sense of that streaking and how I really think it doesn't quite work, and I want to soften that effect in future iterations. I tried a close-up on it. Pointer disaster part 2. I want to try to do a close-up on it a little bit more, but I'm having trouble getting any depth of field on it. I'm going to keep it at this range, and hopefully at 1080p you'll get a real sense of what that looks like. In any case, that gives you a look at the backs of the waves and the froth that I'm trying to improve, I think, in the next iteration, and I think I'll be able to do that, actually. And like I said, I think it needs to come up just a little bit higher in the crest of the wave, as really you're not going to be getting that kind of a frost on, I shouldn't call it a frost, but anyway, a froth that far down the wave. It's going to be a little bit closer to the tip as it starts to roll and take in some oxygen into the wave. And so here you can get a sense of the height of the waves. These are probably about 1 centimeter tall, and I really would like to take that up probably another centimeter or so. One of the things that I was working on with these, and I think I can improve it just a little bit more, is sort of having the gradual wave build up, and then as it gets closer to the shore, have it curl over so that it shows, you know, that sort of crash where it breaks over the edge. And I really, this is the second board I worked on, and I really was trying to work with that a little bit more, and I think I was getting a little bit closer, but it is something I want to improve on the next iteration of it. The part of the problem is that the liquid nails will settle over time. It slumps. And so I need to stick with it a little bit longer so I can control the curl of the wave a little bit better before it starts to slump. Oh my goodness, I'm having trouble with my pointer stick today. So let's see if I can give you a little pan of some of these and give you a little bit of a sense of what effect I'm trying to go for. So I think overall I feel pretty good about the wave height, and I feel very confident that I can take it up another notch, and I've already got another idea on how to achieve that. But I felt pretty pleased that I suddenly realized, you know, that I could you know, slump it and then start to create the crest, and then start to have it roll over as it approaches the shore. You know, so at least I'm seeing the right idea, and it's something that I can work on for the final version, and at least bring it up another notch. The other thing that I wanted to work on is, let's see here if I can pull back a little bit, is I really need to improve the overall spacing of the waves. And let me take an overhead look again, and I'll show you what I mean. So one of the things I realized as I started to work on these, and I've mentioned this in the past, but random does not happen by accident. Random does not happen by accident. If you're not paying attention, you are going to end up with a pattern. And one of the things that I realized as I was working with these is that because I had so much to focus on, so much of this was new, my brain was really taxed on paying attention to a lot of things, and I wasn't paying attention to the spacing of the waves, and these are just a little bit too regular. You know, one of the things that'd be nice to have is a break here, and then a wave kind of coming up and approaching, maybe a smaller one here, and then have another one crashing, and I think it's going to give it a much more realistic appearance. Now, there is some pattern in actual waves coming in, but it's not quite, I think, this regular, and I think it is adding a little bit to an artificial feel. So that is something that I want to work on as well. Now, in order to show you what the next improvement for the boards is going to be, I'm going to have to take a side angle on these boards. So one of the next improvements that I want to make on the board, before I do, I want to show you something that is a challenge with this system. If you look right here, you're going to see an air bubble underneath the waves themselves. This is because when I lay down the Envirotex, it is pretty challenging to get a very smooth application and squeeze out all of those bubbles. And what I actually did, this is pretty crazy, is I actually drill holes into 2 spots of the bubble, and then I use a syringe to inject Liquitex into the bubble and fill it, and I have to have 2 holes because there has to be an escape for the air. I was able to remove a lot of the bubbles under the surface, and I must have missed this one as there were several to do, but I'm thinking that if I heat the Envirotex and I curl it as I apply it, I can more easily control the amount of bubbles coming out of it. Applying this cast is no easy task. I want to say that. It requires an extensive amount of sanding in the front so that I can bring the edge down so that I don't have a sharp lip here, which I think is going to, well, in my past experiments, is going to show when I make the transition. So this is a challenge. I don't want to say it's not. But in any case, I think I can continue to improve it and make its application slightly easier, as filling some of these bubbles actually took quite a bit of time. I had to use a pin vise to drill out the holes and then get a syringe, inject all of that. Not too easy to do. But One of the last things I wanted to talk about is this transition here from the shore to the deeper water. And you'll see here that it has a relatively hard break, and that is what is creating this very rapid transition of the lighter water to the deeper water. Now, one of the things I'm working on, and I've mentioned the silver bullet die cutter that I purchased, is the ability to cut very controlled, very tight dimensional side edges out of styrene to improve the durability of the board edges. My goal is to have this be the, whoops, I have a little sloppy camera work there, is to have these join, and then this is going to provide a very firm edge so that the board's durability, particularly at the corners and the edges, which is where they are the weakest, will be significantly stronger. It has been a journey getting this right because it's new software, and I've made some user errors in the cutting it, and I had to trim these, yada, yada, yada. It was some work, but I have sort of gotten the pieces that I want. I'm very, very close now to having the look that I'm interested in. And one of the nice things is that because I have these edges all cut to a precise edge, the seams between the boards should be very tight. And the transition between the two boards is going to be much, much better. I'll have a fixed height. I have marks along the edges of these to control the depths of the pour of the Envirotex as I add it. So that should control the level of the ocean in terms of matching it from side to side. I will be talking about this more when I have two of these boards mocked up with their edges and carved. And that'll be the final proof of concept. But I feel very, very good about where this is heading. And it allowed me to take another look at the actual transition of the water as it heads out into the deeper areas. One of the things that I want to do is really extend that lighter color much further up into the shoreline, and I think that's going to add just an absolutely fantastic look, and it's going to be much, much more interesting to look at. Now, you'll also notice that this has a slightly longer shoreline, as the shore is going to come out to here, and then the sand is going to transition. So actually, it's going to give me a little bit less water to work with, which I think is going to make it a little bit easier on my end. And that, of course, is going to depend on how I carve the interior, right? So it's going to join at this level here, but as you see, I can go back and really push that back if I want to give it a little bit more depth and, of course, a little bit more interesting shoreline. But this is where the join will occur, and I think that's going to really look very nice. So I'm going to carry this out quite a bit, and then you'll also notice that I will be this is going to reduce the total amount of Envirotex that I use, and that's going to afford two things. One, of course, a cost saving in terms of material use, and it's also going to lighten the weight of these boards. These boards are very, very heavy. I don't even want to, this is probably, without exaggeration, this is probably 5 pounds. That's a lot. Listen to that when it falls. So this is going to reduce some of that weight. It's going to bring it into hopefully a very perfect edge join, and that's also going to improve the actual shoreline appearance. So pretty excited about that. So what we're really looking at is the prototype that is giving me a chance to actually see the overall look of these effects with an actual shoreline that's already been flocked, and give me a real sense of what that is going to look like, and where I'm going right and where I'm going wrong. Two things that I forgot to mention that I should probably mention at this point. One is I'd like to change the color of the sand and go for something a little bit brighter. I think that's going to look a little more natural, and it's going to accentuate that color transition. And the other thing that I really need to watch, and we'll roll this around and I think we'll be able to see that a little bit better, is that I need to be a little bit more careful with the transition of the waves to the cast waves, so from the shore out to the cast waves. On some areas I didn't bring it up quite high enough, and you can really notice a little bit of a ring. Aside from the color itself, you do get a little edge effect here, and I want to reduce that. And in fact, this board actually came out a bit better. So let me swap out the boards and I'll show you where it wasn't working quite right. And so actually this is the same board, and I realize this is where it shows the most. You'll see this line right here, and this is where it shows the cast transition to the liquid nails section, and I really didn't bring this up quite high enough with the liquid nails to meet this edge. Again, I feel pretty confident I can improve that by sanding this a little bit further out, laying it down a little bit tighter, bringing this up to this edge. I feel confident that I can control this transition quite a bit better. So that's one more improvement that I'd like to make on the final version. So, this is going to dramatically change, I think, in the next version for the final set. And I have a lot of ocean boards to do, actually. A large set for 2 customers. So this is going to be a major focus for the upcoming weeks. But it is going to take a long time to do them, because this is a series of pours that takes quite a while to set. It takes almost 8 hours, really 6, between each of the Envirotex layers, final layers, building up the liquid nails, letting that cure, all of the different layers that will happen here. Just to give you a sense, I sat down today, actually last night, I really stared at these for about an hour while I was drawing up notes for the video, as well as kind of getting a sense of making sure that I can capture all of those improvements, what's working, what's not, and what steps I need to do. And this is the series of notes. Each of those is a step. So I want you to realize this is not something that is easy to do. I might be able to shorten those a little bit more in the future, but there is a lot of steps for me to work on to get this to work out right. This gives you a sense of at least how much I'm trying to improve them and trying to get what I hope is going to be, one of the best ocean effects out there for wargaming. Of course, it's not the best in the world. Like I said, that diorama artist is just fantastic, but you at least get a sense of, the effort that I'm trying to put into it. My type A personality, I want to get it right. So there is a extensive look at the ocean boards. One of the other things that I could have talked about is the tiling of the boards based on the angle of the waves striking the shore. I'm not going to go into that right now. There are some sacrifices that are being made for this effect, and when I do the final version, hopefully I'll remember to talk about it. I think I will, because I'll probably lay out a bunch so you can see them. I know this video is a little bit long, but it is the result of what is the longest process of research, experiments, investigation that I've ever done for a terrain project, from the texture of the Envirotex, the tiling of them, the waves, the research online, getting the board edges cut for them. It has been a journey, to say the least, but I'm hoping that it's going to turn out really well when I do the final version. So hopefully you'll come back and check those out. And just before I leave, I probably should have done this at the beginning of the video, because not everybody's going to finish it, but I wanted to give a little shout out to 2 terrain channels, the Terrain Tutor and Terrain Direct. They were kind enough to post a video for me, regarding one of my past videos, I should say. And there are 2 channels that I think are worth checking out. I didn't include them in my previous list that I scrolled. Actually, I guess it was over here in a previous video. That's the way back finger. I just wanted to point them out. They're relatively new. They have a very different technique to terrain, and I think exposure to a variety of methods is always best. I'm following them, and I'm enjoying some of the work they're doing, so I recommend you give a little check out on them. That is Terrain Direct and the Terrain Tutor. So, If this has been long, hopefully you just put it on in the background while you're working on something and take a little glance over to the side. That's sometimes how I run long videos. Hopefully you'll be willing to come back and join me to see the final versions of these, as well as the mock-ups for the new carving with the new board edges. And I still have other videos that I want to shoot, but I do have a lot of work to do for some customers, so I'm going to be cranking on that for the next couple weeks. So maybe a little sparse in the videos for the next 2 weeks, and I say that and I'm probably wrong, because as I go through some of these steps, of course you'll be seeing them. So thank you once again for joining me. Thank you all the new subscribers who are joining the channel. I'm always flattered that people are finding these videos valuable, and hopefully I can continue to keep you entertained and informed and inspired through future videos. I feel like that's a two-way street that I want to continue. So thank you once again, and stay tuned for future videos.